Welcome to Divorced Muslims, A Second Chance, the podcast that uplifts voices for both divorced and single Muslims. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to all our listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Divorced Muslims, A Second Chance. In today's episode, we are joined by Sister Tareena, an influencer on social media. But without wasting any time, I'll hand it over to Sister Tareena to introduce herself.
Hi, so Assalamu alaikum. My name's Tareena and I'm that girl Tam Tam across all socials. And I like to make content about being in relationships and a lot of the questions that people have about being in relationships and a lot of the things that are troubling people, whilst also offering them a source of comfort and hope. Because love is very difficult and I like to try and help and heal people and give them hope.
Okay, so the first segment of season 3 in each episode is all about a person's previous marriage, if applicable, or a person's marriage search, if applicable. Any of those two apply to you?
They do. I am divorced.
Okay, so let's start off with that then. How long ago was your divorce?
12 years ago.
And how long were you married for?
5 years.
How'd you come across your ex-partner?
So I had met my ex-partner through a friend of mine at university. So he was like a friend of a friend.
Okay, so like a mutual friend. Right, so the natural question here would be, tell us about your divorce story. Tell us what happened.
Right. So my whole marriage was unfortunately not a very pleasant experience. I had gone through a lot in that marriage in terms of violence, no longer studying anymore, and there was just loads of things from the beginning, probably even before we read the nikah, to be honest with you. But I still went ahead with it. I think it came to the point where like enough was enough, and it was kind of like, I can't go much further with this regardless of how much I love this person. It has to come to an end for the sake of my physical well-being, for the sake of my mental health and everything. I was an absolute wreck after being in the marriage for many years. So then I decided it was me that got a khula. I decided that it was enough, and I just, with the support of my family, I divorced him.
Okay. I guess one of the things you touched on, if I just, for the sake of argument, just for yourself, seeing something that would perhaps constitute a red flag.
Yes.
I think you just mentioned that you might have seen it prior to the nikah and you went to proceed with it. And it kind of reminds me of quite a few scenarios. I don't know if you've seen the Push documentary. That's a scenario where, I mean, it's a 3-part documentary where a sister, essentially, she gets shouted at in front of her mum, still marries her brother, and a few other examples. And if I apply it to you, if somebody was to say to you, look, Tareena, if you saw red flags prior to marriage, why did you proceed? What would you say?
I really loved him, and I think, I was a lot younger then, and I think everybody dreams of the Prince Charming that comes along and saves them, right? From whatever it may be that they need saving from. And it was 1 or 2 red flags in the beginning. It wasn't as intense. In my opinion, at that time, it was not something that we couldn't get over. It did get a lot worse. So I think I just kind of thought to myself, oh, it's okay. It won't always be like that. People make mistakes. Probably it's like this. We'll get married. Things will be okay, inshallah. And I think the bottom line is I really, really, really loved him. And I think that when we love people so wholeheartedly, because it was my first love as well, I do think we make allowances for people. I do think that we make excuses for people. Having said that, having gone through all of that and the woman I am today, would I turn a blind eye to a red flag now? Absolutely not. But, I was like 19 at the time. I didn't know anything about life, really. I lived my whole life with my parents, obviously. So, I think it was just a young girl that fell helplessly in love and just probably thought that they could help a person change and things would get better, really.
I appreciate the honesty there. I think that signifies quite a lot of scenarios in the marriage search, but we'll come on to that. So next question is, what impact did divorce have on you? I know you mentioned you were a wreck at a certain point, but how would you answer that?
So even though I had gone through a lot with this man, and it was like, you shouldn't be married to a man like that regardless, I would say getting divorced was one of the hardest things I've ever been through. It was an incredibly sad time, even though okay, I shouldn't be with this person is no good for me, this person is XYZ. That didn't make it any easier. it was still really hard and difficult because when you get divorced, like, you're starting a whole new life. When you get married, you plan your whole life with somebody, don't you? I don't think we really get married and think, oh, okay, well, I'm going to marry somebody else. No, when we get married to marry that person forever. That's what the intention is. Well, at least it should be. And then when you get divorced, it's like, okay, I'm new to this life. I need to start my life again. And I do like a little bit of agony aunt work and one-to-one calls and advise people. And I do work with a lot of sisters who are contemplating divorce or who have been divorced. And they all pretty much say the same thing, that it's a really, really sad time getting divorced is.
Yeah, of course. I think I said it in season 1 of this podcast that top of the list when it comes to a human being going through any kind of stress or emotions is death of a loved one, and the second on that list is actually getting divorced. So 100%, I think everybody agree it is a sad time.
That's so
Mhm.
funny that you say that because I'm actually studying to be a therapist and I know the table that you're referring to because I just covered it in my last module. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you
Yeah.
have any? Do you want to add anything to that? Because
No, because
yeah, you go on.
I can't remember what else is on there, but I know the table that you're referring to, and it's a list of life's stressful situations. And at the top, as you are very correct, is death of a loved one, divorce, and there are loads of other things. But obviously, that was due to studying um,
Yeah,
therapy, counselling, etc. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, absolutely. And for those viewers that are listening to this, that kind of shows the magnitude of divorce.
Yes.
When we're making a comparison of losing a loved one, and second in line is divorce, that shows how significant divorce can be in someone's lifetime. Okay, so talking about yourself then, do you think you made any mistakes in your previous marriage?
No one's perfect, my brother. I'm pretty sure I made plenty of mistakes, but if it was not even a comparison, it was more to do with him, his lifestyle choices, the way he wanted to live, and so it was definitely more him. I mean, I probably at times argued with him and things like that, but no major mistakes at all. I had given up a whole life to be married to this man. I was at university studying to be a doctor, and I just couldn't continue with studying because of all the accusations and everything else that would go on. So I had pretty much given up everything to be a housewife to a husband that never comes home. So, I mean, I don't think I could have done any more to essentially bend over backwards or jump how high for this person. But having said that, I probably argued with him a handful of times and things like that. I don't think anyone's totally blameless. But overall, I would say that I wasn't at fault most of the time, or the perpetrator most of the time, should I say.
Um, did you ever finish your medical studies?
I did not, unfortunately. So I was married for 5 years and it took me a while to get over that. And it takes a lot of years, brother. It's very intense. It's just not something I thought I could go back and do at that time. So I've kind of found something else that I want to do, which is kind of linked, which is counseling and being a therapist. So when I said I was going to be a doctor, I was going to be a doctor of psychology. I come from a psychology background. But yeah, I think when I came out of the marriage, it was just, I just didn't have the strength to even think about doing such an intense degree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to put these things into perspective and correct me if I'm wrong. If I've understood this correctly, had you not got married, you would
Yes.
have continued being a doctor. Would you have gone down that path? Have I understood that
Yes.
correctly? And did you drop it for marriage?
I dropped it. So I got married whilst I was at university,
Yeah,
but going into the second year, it became very difficult to continue with the studies because there was a lot of accusations. Sometimes when you're on the way back from university, you might miss the bus, you might miss the train,
yeah.
public transport, you miss it sometimes, right? Or it's late. But whenever I'd get home, there'd always be accusations. And it was just, obviously, I've mentioned before, I don't want to keep touching upon it. But there was a lot of violence in the marriage as well. And, I don't want to come home. It come to the point where I was in lessons and I was like becoming anxious because it's like, oh my God, what if the tutor goes over? What if the train's late? I'm gonna get home and I'm gonna face X, Y, and Z. So I left it because of that. But also, I was living through incredible sadness at the time. I didn't have the brain capacity to do any kind of degree, let alone, such an intense one. So yeah, I left it for the situation, really. And my marriage, yeah. Yeah, I guess.
What a shame. I was going to say, so it wasn't actually getting married. It was actually the marriage being toxic that caused you to let go of your dream or let go of your, career. That's the point I was trying to hit at.
Yeah, and I would say it's not that I try not to regret in life. I try to think of that Allah, alhamdulillah for everything. But like that is something that I do really regret and look back upon where I'm like, oh, okay, probably shouldn't have done that. So yeah, it was a heavy price to pay, really, I think.
Well, may Allah grant you success and barakah in the path that you're
I
going down
mean,
right now. Okay, so the next question is then, how did you bounce back from your divorce?
so that was really, really difficult. I never wanted to get married again. I didn't think I'd ever get married again. Like, that was the last thing on my mind. I think I just wanted to find myself because I had lost myself. I don't even think I ever really knew who I was anyway from getting married so young. You know, when you live at home with your parents, like, are you really you when you haven't experienced life, or like, do you even know yourself? So I'm not sure I even knew who I was. So I decided I need to get to know myself. So I did a lot of traveling, just did all of the things that I really wanted to do, whether that be courses that I went on. Like I said, I did a lot of traveling. I'd be with my friends and I just kind of healed like that, really. I definitely wasn't looking to get married or replace. I mean, when I got divorced, it was a full 3 years before I even met anybody else to get married. And I mean, I didn't even speak to anybody in 3 years. Never mind, go for coffee or whatever, I didn't even speak to anybody for 3 years. I just decided, right, who am I? I need to heal. I've been through some extremely horrible things. And I think, yeah, that was how I healed, by traveling and doing the things that I wanted to do.
So let's focus on your marriage search as a divorcee. What's your marriage search been like as a divorcee?
Right, this is gonna sound insane. It's not that I look for marriage because I genuinely believe what will find me, right? So, like, I haven't been on any apps or anything. I did meet someone who I was supposed to get married to. So I was engaged after my divorce, obviously, some years after. But then unfortunately there were a few issues there, and I also left that situation before we got married. And then after that, I haven't like been engaged or married again. And in terms of marriage search, if I'm being brutally honest, I don't really do anything to look for a spouse. I mean, has it happened where someone's like, oh, okay, my friend knows of you, they'd like to, maybe get to know you, blah, blah, blah. Of course that has happened. But do I actively go out there and search or reply to DMs? No. Hardly. At the same time, I just believe that when it's supposed to find me, it will find me. So I think that's where I'm at with searching for another spouse. But I just want to say um, that has never been a problem for me as a divorcee. Finding somebody that is willing to marry me, because obviously they would know that I've been married before because I tell them. Anybody who I've spoken to for the purpose of marriage, me personally, I know this is not the case for all the sisters. I've never had someone be like, oh, okay, so you were married. I don't want to marry you. That personally has never happened to me before. But yeah, I think, am I looking to get married? Yes, inshallah, of course. But I don't think I actively search. But I'm open to, if someone says, look, this person knows you from XYZ, whatever, would you like to get to know them? Then yeah.
Okay. Follow-up question on that, Tareena. And that
Yes.
is, many sisters, even brothers, might be
Yes.
thinking when they're listening to this that, hold on a second, when we look for marriage, and the divorced ones I'm talking about, and when we
Yes.
mention that we're divorced, it becomes a problem for us.
Yeah.
What's so special about you? They'd want to know so they can take your formula. What would you say?
It's not that I'm so special, my brother. I'm only whatever Allah makes me. What it is that, see, I went through a period of being like really not desperate, but really wanting to get married. And nothing would ever go right with anybody I would speak to. It was like I just really, really wanted to get married. Then I let go of it. Not completely. Like, I do still want to get married, but is it what I think about all day, every day? No, it isn't. I still make dua for it, of course, but it's not as intense as it was before. Before, that was the only dua I would ever make. So I decided to let the reins go a little bit. And since then, that's that's when things like work in my favor. If I had to attribute it to anything, it would probably be the fact that I kind of just let the reins go a little bit and started to trust in Allah a lot more and be like, well, it's okay. Also, I'd like to point out the fact that, see, that in itself is a taboo, isn't it? And any Muslim brother or sister that's divorced and is looking to start speaking to somebody, that may put them off, or that may be like something that makes them nervous. And oh my God, how am I going to mention this to this person that I've been married? It might put them off. For me, I don't allow it to be viewed as a hurdle. I will say it straight away. I don't see it as a hindrance. I don't allow it to make me anxious. I'll just say, I have been married, by the way. And I don't know if it's my approach to it, but alhamdulillah, no one has ever been like, yeah, actually, you're too much. I think it's a lot to do with the person you are as well. It's not that I'm so amazing, but I don't know. It's connection, isn't it? And I think if you find the connection with people, I mean, do they really care that you've been married before? Will they care that you've got kids? I'd like to argue, and I'd like to think that if somebody liked you for you and not your external things or not what you are, you as the person that you are, then I'd like to think that, that wouldn't be an issue that you've been married or got kids.
Yeah, fair enough. And the second question is, um, why is it that you're not necessarily taking active steps looking for marriage? I appreciate you haven't closed the door on it, but many
Yeah.
people might want to know, why isn't Sister Tarina putting herself out there, whether that's just that's joining a matchmaker, I don't know,
Yeah.
apps, marriage events, etc.
I think what I'm looking for is so rare that I don't know if I would find it on a marriage app. There's loads of different things. I mean I'm in the middle of like doing these businesses that I work on the side, and that requires a lot of attention that I think I'd rather just focus on that for the time being. And when I can fully apply myself to try and find a spouse, then inshallah that will happen. But having said that, whilst I am, trying to build the foundations for my future or whatever it was, if someone comes along or, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, someone was to be like, oh, this person's seen you here and wants to get to know you, and they were, a good fit, would I get married? Absolutely. But I think it's probably my attention's diverted. And that's because, we touched on it before about, look, I was studying to be a doctor, that didn't happen. So I'm not where I would have been, if that makes sense. Had I have not got married, I would have been in a much different position in life. And I think that hits me hard, right? So I think that's why I would rather than actively be looking for marriage, I would rather be building the foundations for the future.
All right. So, any experiences in your marriage search that you want to share, or even striking experiences that you've heard of?
I have heard a lot of horror stories. I don't think I'd even want to be on a marriage app after the things that I've heard from the sisters. I work with a lot of sisters advising them, and I've heard all kinds. I think what I'd like to say here is about like how marriage apps are purely for the purpose of finding marriage. However, it struck me that, some of the sisters have come across brothers that have not been looking for marriage, to have like used them for money, etc., like con them out of money. I think that's something that struck me about not my own marriage search, obviously, but the sisters that I work with. That really struck me, and I'm constantly dealing with sisters that are mentioning that they've loved this guy that they met from so and so app, and he was married but he lied. And I think that is definitely something that makes me think, oh my god, trying to find a spouse if you're actively looking is very difficult. So yeah, I'd say that was what I found quite striking about it.
Okay. And that's nicely leading me on to some general questions that I had for
Okay.
you, Sister Tarina. So, starting off with the first one, there isn't a dispute that generally speaking, British Muslims are finding it difficult to get married. Why do you
Yeah.
think that's the case? What do you think's the problem here?
I think it's probably the expectations that people have and maybe how people go about it. I speak to a lot of sisters who come across people who are just not what they say they are, or they've got things that are hidden and they're just not as transparent. And I'm not quite, I couldn't actually put my finger on that. And that's a brilliant question that you've asked. I mean, are people seriously actually looking for marriage? Because I work with sisters who are like, yeah, I thought we were going to get married, but then he called it off for silly reasons. Based off of the work that I do, I could probably argue that, I mean, I don't know if people are really seriously looking for marriage at times, and they promise marriage when they're not looking for that. I think it's a lot of expectations, and I don't know if it's to do with social media. I don't know if it's to do with, times change, and because obviously times do change, especially British Muslims or Muslims living in the West. It's not like it used to be before. Before there was probably the expectation that people would get an arranged marriage. I think definitely it was a lot harder to marry someone that you wanted to marry years ago, should we say. I think now, obviously, parents are more open to allowing their children to marry who they want. And I think because it's being left in the child's hands, should we say, but still the parents have their say, don't they? I think that also makes it quite difficult finding someone who your parents agree with, although they've allowed you to have your choice. I think that it's quite a confusing time to find love and find a spouse. Definitely. I think people are not on the same page at all, unfortunately.
Okay. What's the difference between having standards and having unrealistic expectations?
So unrealistic expectations are things that someone probably thinks they're going to go into a marriage and it's going to be all happy roses and it's going to be like this and my husband's going to pay for everything. That's not how a marriage works. And I do think as well, I'm going to bring it back to social media, that social media has probably contributed to that. There's a whole, princess treatment and loads of influencers talking about how and what you should expect from your man, and if he doesn't buy you these flowers, blah blah blah. And when it comes to unrealistic expectations, I think that definitely plays a part. But at the same time, Of course we have standards. Standards, I would argue, are things that we all have a right to, and what we deem appropriate in a marriage. Like we all have standards, don't we? Things that we expect off of a spouse when we enter into a marriage with them. That's the difference between the two, I would argue.
Okay. Now, I appreciate you haven't used apps as you've said, but you've got many
Yeah.
sisters that you've come across have. From what you have known and the anecdotal experiences that have come to you, do you think apps have improved or damaged the marriage search? Are people genuinely serious, or are they emotionally browsing? Are they rewarding honesty or perfection? What's your thoughts around that?
Unfortunately, I'm going to say that it's damaged it. I know a lot of sisters that have given up looking for marriage totally based off of negative experience after negative experience on these marriage apps. I think when it initially started, it was a place that people thought, right, halal marriage app. I can look for marriage. It's on an app. Brilliant. It's going to make it so much easier for people to get married. And I do think, people were excited about that. And I know people who have been successfully and still are successfully married off of these marriage apps. They're in very happy marriages. But I definitely think that has changed. I think that there are people on these apps that are not looking for marriage. In fact, I definitely know that there are people on these apps that are not looking for marriage. People on there are not transparent or open about their own situations. A lot of sisters come across men that are married and haven't been open about that. A lot of people come across brothers who lie about what they do for a living and like children that they have. So I would definitely say, and I definitely work with sisters who, not that they've been damaged, but like the process, these marriage apps kind of has deterred them looking for marriage. I think there's one sister that I work with, and she's like, I was speaking to her the other day, and she said, look, I'm traumatized by looking for love on these marriage apps. Like, I just want to give up. And she's deleted her account. So I definitely would say 100% it's damaged the process of looking for love.
Okay. Um, I want to put down an argument, and I just want to hear your thoughts on that argument, right?
Okay.
So, one of the arguments that people put forward that subconsciously, most British Muslims don't actually want marriage. They want the benefits of marriage without responsibility. They want companionship, not commitment. Marriage has become optional, not really a priority. What's your thoughts around that?
So what I hear a lot in my line of work is like, I got married to make it halal. I got married because we had to, because obviously we were in a relationship and we had to get married. So I definitely do agree to some extent that people get married not for the right purpose. Because, I mean, do we get married just to make it halal? Well, no. Yes, we get married so it's halal, but that's not the sole reason for getting married. We get married because we found our life partner. We get married because we found the person that we want to spend our life with, that we can build a foundation with, that we can, live in this life and the next life with. So definitely, I do think that your argument there, there is some basis to it, 100%. I think particularly as well with the younger generation, because now people are chasing careers, aren't they, more? And quite rightly so. People are chasing other things, I think, definitely British Muslims. It's not a case of, I'm going to leave school, I'm going to do uni, and then I'm going to get married. I think that is definitely on the decrease. I think, people, they finish school, they go to uni, and then it's like, right, I'm going to start a business. I'm not looking for marriage yet. I'm going to go and work and live in Dubai for a bit of experience, and then I'll get married. So definitely, I would say that marriage is probably not people's priority as much as it was before. Yeah, I guess I would agree with that.
Okay. So, one of the arguments that people put forward is that people not finding a spouse is all self inflicted, meaning they have unrealistic standards, fear of divorce, image obsession. What's your thoughts around that? So, self infliction, do you think we've pressed that self detonator button when looking for marriage? Do you think we are to blame ourselves? What's your thoughts around that?
I think there is an element of people being blamed themselves because, like, I would attribute that to the unrealistic expectations that people have. They think that marriage is, it's something that it's not going to be. They think that they're going to get married and it's going to be just happy ever after, and that they don't really think about it, particularly the younger generation. Because I work with a lot of younger generations, and it's like, yeah, but we'll get married and then we'll do this. And it's like, but it might not be like that. Like, you have to plan for things to not be rosy forever after. So, yeah, I definitely think that people do have unrealistic expectations, but and that would be self-inflicted, wouldn't it? That would be their own fault for that.
Yeah. Okay. Um, let's focus on parents and family involvement.
Okay.
Now, many brothers and sisters would have their parents involved in their marriage search or family involved. And the question I have for you is, you have two concepts here, advice or control. So where do you draw the line between the two? When is it advice and when is it control?
I think it's advice when your parents give you pointers and guide you. So if you say, "Mom, I found a brother that I want to marry. He's really nice, he's XYZ," and then them asking you questions to find out suitability and giving their advice based on them questions, I would say that is advice. When it turns to control, and again, I work with this a lot, it's saying no, or not allowing the child to have the person they want, or it's like, "No, I don't think it's going to work." Rather than having a healthy discussion about it, what a lot of parents do is they do take over, and it's like, "Well, no, no, I don't think you can marry him. You're not from the same culture," whatever the reason may be. So that is the biggest difference between giving advice, discussing it healthily, as opposed to fully taking over and being like, "Well, no, I'm not even willing to have a discussion. You're just not going to marry the person." I work with a lot of people who, haven't been able to marry the person that they wanted to purely because they're from different cultures. Obviously, they're Muslims, but they're just totally different countries. Everything else on paper, brilliant. Good guy, brilliant job, respect, praise 5 times a day, morals. But we're not going to let you marry him because he's from this country, we're from this country, we're different people. That is the main form of control that I work with, as opposed to the parents saying, "Well, hold on, okay, maybe we're not from the same countries, but this guy's a really good guy. Our daughter would be happy with him. Maybe we can work it out." That would be obviously healthy advice, wouldn't it? And control is when they take over and say, "Well, no, it's just not going to happen," and completely shut it down. And unfortunately, a lot of that still does happen. I don't think it happens as much as it used to, but it's definitely still happening. And as well, people being expected to marry people that they really don't want to marry. If I bring it back to the context of your question, I guess parents saying, "Well, we found this guy for you. He's a really good guy, XYZ. Let's discuss it. Do you want to?" I guess that's the main question that should be asked that probably isn't asked a lot of the time. And allowing the daughter to be like, "Well, mom, dad, they're not really my type, or I kind of have a different vision." Sometimes, unfortunately, it does happen that turns into control, and it's like, "Well, no, you kind of have to marry that person." So yeah, there's a big difference between the two, the healthy advice and the control.
Okay, I'm going to give you a scenario where brothers and sisters effectively say, I was good enough to talk to, but not good enough to marry.
Yeah.
And essentially, there seems to be a pattern where there's long conversations going on, deep emotional sharing, but when marriage talks become real, the connection ends. So some people use the marriage search arguably for validation and not actual intention for marriage. So effectively, we're looking at emotional intimacy without commitment. What's
Yeah.
your thoughts around that, especially in your line of work?
Yeah, it's something that I definitely come across as well. And I kind of think that, look, we are Muslims, so it's definitely not in our plans to just randomly talk to a girl or a guy, is it? I would argue, as Muslims, if we start talking to somebody, it's always with the idea of marriage, isn't it? That's always what we're trying to work towards.
Yeah,
I don't think we have a casual mindset at all. I come across that rarely. So what I do think is that sometimes people do know that, don't they? They know, "Oh, she's not gonna probably talk to me. If she doesn't think I'm serious about marriage, or if she doesn't think that I want to marry her, is she going to talk to me? Am I going to get that kind of relationship if I don't at least promise her marriage?" So I do think that there is an element, and of course, in my work, I come across it where people are saying, "Okay, yes, we'll get married. Yes, let's talk about marriage." And it isn't really what they want. It isn't what they've got planned. They say that because they know that the sister or brother, if they know, hold on, there's no marriage at the end of this is just a joke, this is just for a walk in the park, that they're not going to go along with it. They're going to cut it off before it gets further. So unfortunately, there is a large number of situations that I've worked with where people are kind of led down the garden path. Does that make sense? Like
yeah.
promise marriage, but marriage was never a thing. It was just because that person wanted to, took a liking to them, wanted to hang out with them, whatever it may be. And people have been told, "Yeah, I I've thought about it properly. I don't think I'm ready for marriage." I deal with that a lot.
Yeah. Okay, here's a deep question for you.
Yeah.
How does one get over heartbreak?
So, how did I get over my heartbreak? Was purely by trusting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Full tawakkul in Allah, right? Now, we all say we trust Allah. Of course we do, and we all do. But do we really fully trust Allah? Do we? Do we fully know what tawakkul means? I don't know if we do. I don't think I did. So I I went away, researched that, listened to whatever YouTube videos, whatever books I could read. The qadr of Allah and tawakkul, trusting in God, are two things I know. As a broken-hearted woman, I need to be reassured in these areas. A, the plan of God, because I don't know what my own plan is, and I'm feeling insecure right now. I don't know where life takes me. I'm a broken woman. I'm heartbroken. I need to know that there is a plan for me. Hence, I looked into the qadr of Allah. And also, trusting Allah. Because yes, we can say, oh, it's okay. What's written is written, whatever. But do we fully trust that? And trust is a great thing. Trusting in the plan of God is a major thing. So for me personally, getting over heartbreak was me knowing, okay, I'm heartbroken now. It wasn't meant to be. If it was meant to be, it wouldn't have passed me by. Something else is meant for me. And Allah is Al-Adl. Allah is the most just. So when He does something, He does it in a just way because Allah is fair. So if I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fair, and if I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't do things out of spite, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just not give you somebody because He doesn't want to give you somebody, and if I know that Allah's promise is true, and I know that I call upon Allah and He will answer, I know I'm going to be okay. It's all about perspective. It's all about mind over matter. It's very hard to get over heartbreak. And I think what a lot of people do is, they feel these pains. You're going to feel them pains regardless of whatever you tell yourself about qadr and tawakkul. Yeah, heartbreak is heartbreak. It's horrible. But people get consumed in it. And I think rather than getting consumed in it, yes, allow yourself to feel that pain because we are not robots, but do not allow yourself to sink in them emotions. Always remind yourself whatever is yours will never miss you, and our Lord is the most merciful. You will get what is yours when the time is right. Because I also work with a lot of people who have been heartbroken and they're like, oh, I'm never going to be in love again. I'm never going to get married again. No. What is yours will never miss you. It may be that was not for you whilst you wanted it. Sometimes we want things from our nafs. But one thing I like to say that I'd love to say now, I say this to all of the sisters that I work with. I say, we as humans, we want something based off of here and now. We don't know what's 2 seconds ahead of us, right? And we make dua based on that, not knowing the future, not knowing what's lying ahead of us, yeah? So we think that we want things with a limited knowledge. Do you want what you want based off, and you're not all seeing, you're not all hearing, you have limited knowledge, or do you want what Allah wants for you? Do you want what Allah has written for you? And Allah is all seeing. Allah doesn't have limited knowledge. Allah knows everything. Well, if it's me that has to answer that question, I want what Allah chose for me. And I accept that, yes, I wanted this person, didn't work out, I'm heartbroken, but Allah has something better. Okay, so I don't know everything Allah does, so I'll go with Allah's plan over mine. And that's how I live my life, not just with heartbreak, with anything. I'm an incredibly strong person. There's not a lot of things that get me down. I am human, I do get sad, but I get back up again pretty soon, purely because of that rhetoric. And I try to teach that to everybody. Allah's plan over mine, regardless of what I want from my nafs and how intensely I want it. Because they are really strong feelings. Regardless of that, I want what my Lord chose for me. So I'd love for people to really feel, whoever's listening to this, I'd really love them to feel that message, because I teach it to everyone and it's very powerful and it's got me out of some very dark moments. Always Allah's plan over ours, regardless.
Okay. So next question, and I know this doesn't apply to you, but
Yeah.
your view is definitely important. So the question is, often what happens is a person who is divorced, right? They find that once their marital status is known, interest in them drops sharply.
Yeah.
So that results in them considering delaying disclosure of the fact that they are divorced just to be seen as a person first. Obviously,
Yeah.
this is based around the fact that there's stigma attached around and the taboo attached around being divorced.
Yeah.
So now we're in a scenario where a person is having to balance being honest and essentially the want of getting married. So the question is, what's your views around this delaying disclosure of your marital status? What's your thoughts?
So that definitely happens. That's also something that I work with. I mean, I totally understand why people do that. Okay. So this is something that I work with a lot. I understand why sisters and brothers may do that. Because naturally, when you are divorced, you yourself thinks it's going to be hard to get married. You yourself thinks that that's going to be a taboo. And that could be cultural, whatever. So we all want to be loved, right? Everyone wants that happy ever after. And at the very least, we do deserve to be in marriages. Why should you not be married because you've been divorced? So what people are doing is they find people that they like and it's like, look, I see a potential in this person, but I don't want to put them off. And me telling them that I've been divorced could very well do that. I don't want to lose them. So what they decide to do is, withhold that bit of information and kind of get to know them and hope that the person will get to know them for me. And then when I tell them that bit of information that I have been married, hopefully they have got to know me well enough that that won't be a problem. That definitely happens. I work with that a lot as well. It's unfortunate that people feel like they have to do that. Me, for example, I think I said at the beginning, what I do is I just say straight away, I have been married. If you do not want to continue getting to know me, that is your choice. I respect it, but we end it here. That's my approach. And my approach is that purely because my way of thinking is different. I think different to a lot of people. In my brain, in my mind, I have nothing to lose in this dunya, right? That's it. I'm here for a test. My sole purpose is to stand in front of Allah. I don't have nothing to lose. Nothing. I'm not guaranteed anything in this life. I don't have the right. Like anything I have is out of Allah's mercy. Therefore, I'm okay with not getting things because it's only out of Allah's mercy that I get it. So I am kind of a take it or leave it kind of person. Hence, I say straight away, look, my brother, I've been married. I'm going to tell you now. So we don't go further on. You start to develop feelings for me. I develop feelings for you. And then bang, I've been married. You don't want me. I say it straight and I say it as it is. However, I really understand the people, particularly the sisters, who there are a lot of sisters that are scared of not getting married again. That is a lot of sisters' fears. I work with a lot of sisters who are, I don't want to use the word depressed, but sad at the thought that, they're never going to get married again. It's what we want. It's part of the fitrah to be with somebody else. So yeah, it's a shame that people feel they have to do that, but I understand why people do that.
Okay, let's ask you a direct question now, Tareena. Although you're not looking for marriage actively, let's just say, a good guy comes in the equation somehow. And he tells you that he's single, never married. 6 months later, in getting to know you, he says to you, look, Tareena, I was always going to tell you this, but the reasons are I didn't want to mention it because I didn't want the door to be closed. And I'm basing this on the scenario that you're single, never married, okay? And 6 months later, he says, I want to tell you that I am actually divorced. Um, what would be your reaction to that?
So I would be upset that he had lied. However, I would understand why he lied. He lied because I've never been married before and he thought that would make him tainted. The thing is, I would still, if I loved him, I would still proceed purely because A, I would understand why he had lied. B, it's been 6 months. I've got all these feelings for him and, I'd probably see him bigger than his divorce. Would it make me not trust him? I think it wouldn't make me not trust him, but I would probably have to have a word with him and be like, look, that can't ever happen again. I understand why you lied about that, but like, don't make a habit of it because we don't lie to each other. However, I understand why you lied. I can personally look past somebody being married before, even, you mentioned in your question that this is if I was single and never married. When I was single and never married, the guy that I did get married to had been married before. So to me, the fact that someone's been married before is neither here nor there. And maybe that's why I'd be forgiven about the situation. It wouldn't be a deal breaker for me because I don't really care if someone's been married before. I think for me, the biggest issue would be, look, we don't lie to each other. I understand this once, we forgive to be forgiven. Don't make a habit of it, but I understand why you lied. That would be my personal approach to that if that happened to me.
Okay, interesting. A very fresh perspective, I must say, to that question.
You
All
didn't
right.
think I was going to say that, did you?
No, I didn't. You got me there. All right. Okay. Let's talk about fear-based marriages. Again, this might apply to your line of work. So what I'm trying to ask you, Tareena, is fear a valid reason to marry? So for example, often when, let's say, a brother or a sister hits the age of 30, right? The
Yes.
the kind of sound that they have to listen to is options get worse after 30, pool of potentials decrease as you get older. Is fear a valid reason to get married? What's your thoughts?
Absolutely not. Never get married out of fear. Never. Fear is a big thing, particularly like I just said before, fear is a big thing when it comes to thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to get married again. Oh my God, I've never been married. I'm 35. Everyone's telling me I'm too old. It's never going to happen for me. I'm never going to have kids. I'm getting older. These fears are instilled in us. So naturally, that will make us hasty and get married, right? Because we're having all these fears instilled in us. We're also fearful, particularly the sisters. I work with a lot of sisters, again, who are like 39, never been married. And they're like, oh my God, I won't be able to have kids. I'm thinking of marrying this person, but he treats me XYZ. So again, I do this a lot in my work as well. And I teach them the same thing I'm going to say here. We don't marry out of fear because my opinion on that is this. Okay, let's say we rush to get married. We've ticked that box.
Hmm.
but we're also not getting married to get divorced. Because if we marry out of fear and we marry someone that's not compatible, that ends in only, well, one of two ways. Number one is divorce. Number two, a considerably unhappy marriage, none of which anyone should have to go through or live through. So I encourage the people that I work with to not do that, because we don't want to, yeah, tick a box now, but later on down the line end in divorce and all kinds of things, and all kind of bad things happen. So we don't get married out of fear, inshallah. Although I understand why people may rush to get married out of fear.
Okay. Another deep question for you. Why is a man who is divorced often seen as quote unquote experienced, but a divorced woman is seen as quote unquote baggage?
That's a good question. And I don't know if that's to do with like the expectations that we have, like, in terms of gender roles and what a woman should be. And, like when a girl gets married and she's never been married before. And I think that people have the expectation, and a lot of people want to get married to somebody probably who's never been married before, because that's how, I don't know if that's how we're taught that it goes, but that's definitely the idea that we have, isn't it? We get married, and that person's never been married before, and it's like this. I think men generally have the idea that they're going to marry someone that's never been married before, because I don't know if that's what's taught, but I would argue that that's what men, they do think. They do have an idea, don't they? I don't think there's any man that, when they're younger, thinks, oh yeah, I'm going to marry someone that's been divorced. I think, people think that they're going to marry someone who's never been married before. That's probably the expectation we have. So when it's a woman, it's like, oh, she's got baggage because she didn't come as I expected her to come, which is never been married. But a man, well, it's okay, well, they're allowed multiple wives anyway. Is it that deep? Is it, a woman is just for one, aren't they? I'm going to make
Isn't
that
isn't that
argument.
unfair? Isn't that unfair though?
It's
That's not a
very
level. That's
unfair.
not a level playing field.
It's definitely not a level playing field. But if I was to, my argument would be based on that. That's just what I think, right? Women, it's one for one, isn't it? With a woman, we don't have multiple husbands. It's one for one, right? But a man, if he wanted to, maximum is four, right? So really, is it really that deep? When they're thinking about it, well, he can have four wives anyway. Like, so it's normal for them. But a woman, it's one on one. So no, she's tainted. She's got baggage because of, she's been married before. But a man, well, he could marry two or three anyway if he wanted to. So he's experienced. I think it's that's the reason women are looked on with excess baggage, and men are more like experienced, sort of experienced, should we say.
Okay. Next question then. Green flags are more important than red flags. Agree or disagree?
I agree, although I do believe that red flags can be worked out, and it's good to know the red flags.
Okay. Final question. What do you think the solutions are to the problem of difficulties around finding a spouse?
I'm going to bring it back to that word that we've used so much, expectations. People need to be real with each other. Number one, if you are not looking to get married, if that is not your intention, do not enter into anything with anybody in general, but specifically where you've promised them marriage, right? That's what I would say. We have definitely become very picky. I do think that we should be picky. I do, because you don't want to marry just anybody. But I don't know if we've taken that a little bit too far, particularly some of the sisters that I work with. I can't even really think of an example now, but it is getting really, really picky. People are really particular. If you took it back, let's say years ago, like when my grandma got married or whatever, like they didn't have a tick list or a checklist. Someone was suitable for them. They spoke, they liked each other, they had a good level of iman. XYZ, they got married and left the rest to Allah. Now is very, kind of transactional, kind of tick list. Do they tick that one? My non negotiables, and then that's ticked off the list. I think we need to be not as fussy, but at the same time still have standards as well.
Okay. That's the end of the general questions, but just a few follow-up questions based on what you said today, right? And whilst I'm not going to detail of your own previous marriage, but you talked about violence. So here's a question for you, right? The statement of once an abuser, always an abuser. Is that true? What would you say?
I do think it is. I think if a person stops becoming an abuser physically, they will still have, the ability to mentally abuse you as well. I think once someone's nasty and a mean person, people rarely, rarely change, to be honest. And I think as people get older, what I have seen is that, yes, when people get older, they probably aren't as physically abusive because, I don't know, maybe they've got sons that are now men and they can't be abusive, whatever the reasons may be. That person, just because they've stopped being physically abusive, doesn't mean that they're not still an abuser. They would still put their spouse down. They would still, talk down to them and still abuse them mentally. So I do, yes, I do think once an abuser, always an abuser. It's very hard for a person to change.
Okay. I also want to discuss, if you're comfortable, that is, there may be sisters listening to this and thinking, oh, wait, what does Sister Tareena do and what can she do to help us? For those of you who are listening, her TikTok page is at thatgirl.tamtam. Tareena, if there's any sisters listening, like, tell us about what you do, and if they want to get in touch with you, what can you offer them?
So there's a link in my bio where I offer a one-to-one advice call where generally sisters book in whatever the issue is that they've got, and we just discuss it. Most people need someone to talk to, and I am often the person that they come to talk to. But as discussed, I've got a lot of experience, and I know a lot of things in this area, having gone through it myself. And so yeah, you can book a one-to-one call, and we can discuss your problems, whatever they may be, and we take it from there.
Okay. Well, if you're listening, sisters, I'll put it in the comments below of the platforms that we publish this in, inshallah. Okay, so that brings me on to a game that I'm playing in season 3 with our guests. And the game is called Red Light, Green Light. I'm going to give you a few scenarios, and you're going to say whether you're going to give the potential the red light, you've got the green light as an option, and you've got amber light as well as an option. Okay, you
Okay.
ready? You ready for this? Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, a potential with no job but good deen.
Oh, for me, amber.
Okay, a potential on deen but with a previous criminal conviction.
Green light. It depends what the conviction is, though.
Okay, um, a potential with a social media page with many opposite gender followers.
Oh, red light.
A potential that does not speak to family, i.e., lives independently.
Green light.
A person who has a bad past but is a good person today.
Green light.
A potential who is 30 plus in age, has no education, and earns 25K.
Green light. He makes a living.
And finally, a potential that has suffered abuse in the past but has healed today.
Green light. 100%.
Okay. Well done. And then finally, in terms of the second game, is we're going to play the rapid fire round. So I'm going to pose a few questions, and you basically, whatever comes to your head, you can answer it like that. Okay. All right. So once you're married, where would you take your spouse out to eat on a first date?
Nowhere. He'll take me.
What is the best age to get married?
Oh, 25, 26.
What percentage of British Muslims who are looking for marriage, in your opinion, are serious about marriage?
60%.
If your spouse says to you, well, this one's definitely for you. If your spouse says to you that they want you off social media, what would be your response?
Delete it straight away.
Oh, please.
No,
Okay.
100%. 100%.
Okay, I
We're
believe you.
married. It's not a joke.
Okay. How long should one get to know a potential before making the decision to marry them?
Okay, so I'm going to say 6 months.
Okay. What method is the most effective to find a spouse? Apps, marriage events, matchmakers, matrimonial websites, marriage bureaus.
I like a matchmaker.
Would you sign a prenuptial agreement?
Absolutely not.
Mental health or physical health?
Oh, mental health's more important.
What do you think it takes to be in a marriage that lasts forever?
Marry your best friend.
If there was a book written on you, what would be the title of the book?
The angel that grew her own wings.
The one who could have been a doctor.
The one that should have been a doctor.
Okay, what do British Muslims say privately but hesitate to admit publicly?
I wouldn't marry her because she's got kids.
Okay, that's the end of the rapid fire. So marriage profile time, guys. I'm just focusing on you, Tareena. Okay, what's your age?
36.
What's your height?
5'4".
Your location?
Birmingham.
Ethnicity?
Mixed race, white and Pakistani.
Occupation?
Let's say admin for now.
Marital status?
Divorced.
Okay, now let's focus on what you're looking for. What is your age range preference?
So maybe like 30 to like 40.
Height preference?
Oh, 6 foot minimum.
Location preference?
Birmingham, Manchester, London.
Ethnicity preference?
I don't really mind about ethnicity.
Occupation preference?
Highly educated, good job, lot of money.
Would you consider a divorcee with children?
Not with children, but a divorcee, absolutely.
Okay, and finally, in summary, apart from what we've already discussed, What is it that you're looking for?
Someone that we can get through this life together with. It's hard enough as it is. Best friends, tackle this life and the next, bidnillah ta'ala.
Okay, Tareena, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we end this episode?
I just want to say, don't give up looking for love. Don't give up hope in love. And don't listen to what people say to you when people say you're too old, you've got kids, you've never been married, you're this, you're that. Your qadr is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands. It's not in the hands of those people who are around you, who judge you or make you feel like crap. Your qadr is with Allah. Trust Him. The rest will flow.
Barakallah feek, Tareena. Thank you very much for being a guest on our podcast. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you for having me. Barakallahu feek.
If you fit the criteria of the guest today, and if you are interested in considering the guest for marriage, then please email us the following details: your name, age, location, height, occupation, ethnicity, marital status, family contact name, and family contact details. Our email address is divorcedmuslims@gmail.com. Remember the golden rule: only family details will be exchanged. If we have no family details, then the request will be ignored. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, or if you want to contact us, then please email us. Our email address is divorcedmuslims@gmail.com.